I will request everyone to keep their audios off and videos off, please. We'll begin in another 5 minutes. Hello, Maulik.
Hello.
Hello.
1 second. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Very well. Very well. Good morning,
Shall,
everyone. Yeah.
shall we begin?
Yes.
Okay. We have some good guests here as participants, and allow me to introduce you. Allow guest, welcome everyone. Allow me to introduce to our masterclass speakers, Apoorv and Maulik. Apoorv and Maulik are brand practitioners and marketing communication professionals with a history of working in numerous business categories and brands, both on the agency side as well as the client side. They have extensively engaged with both MNCs and SMBs in India and globally. Apoorv comes with a decade of experience in marketing and branding. His experience of copywriting and an entrepreneurial background gives him a good understanding of brands, markets, and businesses. Notably, he has consulted clients to help them get a recognition and win awards in their domains. Volkswagen, BlackBerry, PepsiCo, Johnson and Johnson are some of the big clients he has worked with. Maulik, on the other hand, also comes with a decade plus experience of working at reputed brand consultancies like DY Works and Interbrand. He has also had an international stint in Africa. Some of the notable brands he's worked in the past includes Mahindra, Britannia, Nerolac, Punjab National Bank, ITC, Haldirams, Tata Motors, and many more. He has been instrumental in setting up and leading successful profit center units within organizational setups. Both hold an MBA degree from Symbiosis in University Pune in communication management. I welcome Apoorv and Maulik. Thank you for your time. Thank you for spending your Saturdays with us, sharing your experiences, and over to you.
A pleasure. Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. Apoorv.
Good morning. How are you? How's everyone here? Sorry to bother on a Saturday, but we hope to start your weekend in a very good, fun, and enlightening manner. So, yeah, let's start. Namaste to start with.
Namaste. And while we can't see all of you, but hopefully, Neha, I think you're at the back end, you'll be looking at people. So we'll just put our camera off and we'll jump into the session. Wherever there are interactions, maybe Neha, you can coordinate for us and collect responses from participants.
I will.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I hope we are audible to everybody. Namaste, as we say, and we'll jump straight in. So we want to introduce you to 22 AM. This is a consultancy and design solutions organization which we have founded very recently, and we focus on B2B brands. Obviously, you all are aware of all the consumer brands like Lakme's and Dove and the various colas, but somewhere B2B brands are considered to be very bland or very boring or very functional. So imagine things like machines to make machines, for that matter of fact. Of Britannia, but there are brands which are giving services to Britannia to create their products. That's B2B. Also, many a times consumer brands have their own materials which are sold to for business purposes. We're going to take you through on this journey to help you understand what B2B brands are all about. Of course, you have seen us now. This is who we are. So we'll jump to that. So this session is going to be all about, first of all, what is brand and branding? These are two very important words and we use them very interchangeably. As a part of this session, before we understand what B2C and B2B brands are, let us understand what brand and branding is. And then we will jump into the most important part of this session. What is this called Unboring B2B? This is that mission that we are on. So, and then that third segment of this particular presentation will give you an idea of how you can sort of make careers in the B2B space, in B2B brand building, B2B brand marketing, and communications. So if everyone is with me, shall I just jump in? Neha, you can probably just say yes to me so I understand at the back, because we can't hear you.
Yes, please go ahead.
All right. So you guys are ready. And so here we go into brand and branding. So I think, Neha, here's maybe a kind of a poll that you might want to do with all the participants out here. Maybe everybody quickly wants to put in a chat, what is a brand? Whatever you feel like. It could be a word, two words, whatever you think, quickly, guys. What is a brand? And Neha, why don't you just give us a response as to what the people are saying out here?
So nothing is right or wrong. Everyone, according to what their understanding of a brand is, just put in one word, two words, bunch of words, or even a sentence. That's fine.
Just go for it. 2 minutes, no more.
Maulik, let me know if you want me to read out to you.
Yeah, I'm able to read a few of them. I can see an identity, how people remember you, a persona that's delivering a product or service. Yeah.
Promise or experience.
Promise or experience. So yes, I can see that. An emotive evocation when we say a word. Interesting. So right now, okay, brand is giving a look and feel to the product and business, a reflection to a company's vision and mission. Interesting. I think all of you have got given so many, points out here. So the fact is, I wouldn't say anything is right or wrong. Just hold on to your thoughts of this definition and let's try to enter into defining what we think as per our experience, what a brand is. And let's see if we align to that definition. And if we do, then perhaps that will form the foundation of this particular session and we take it forward. Thank you everyone for your inputs out here. I'll move ahead. All right. You know what the fun part is, while you guys answered that brand is, perception, what people think, there is one problem of brands that I want to put in front of you. And The funny part is in the field of advertising, communication, we have this uncanny ability that whenever, even if things are probably to be rectified or whatever things are even, are faults, we are able to use it to our advantage. Have a look at this little film by an organization which is selling stock footage and images, and look at how they are actually talking about, that particular brand, the kind of service that they are giving. But this is also forming the crux of what is the problem of branding in general. Have a look at it and we have a quick convo. I hope everybody's audio is clear.
We think first of vague words that are synonyms for progress and pair them with footage of a high-speed train. Science is doing lots of stuff that may or may not have anything to do with us. See how this guy in a lab coat holds up a beaker? That means we do research. Here's a picture of DNA. There are a shitload of people in the world, especially in India. See how we're part of the global economy? Look at those farmers in China. But we also do business in the USA, or want you to think we do. Check out this wind energy thing in Indiana, and this blue-collar guy with dirt on his face. Also, we care about the environment, loosely. Here's some powerful rushing water and people planting trees. Our policies could be related to these panoramic views of Costa Rica. In today's high-speed environment, stop-motion footage of a city at night with cars turning quickly makes you think about doing things efficiently and time passing. Lest you think we're a faceless entity, look at all these attractive people. Here's some of them talking and laughing, and close-ups of hands passing canned goods to each other in a setting that evokes community service. Equality, innovation, honesty, and advancement are all words we choose from a list. Our prophets are awe-inspiring, like this guy who's looking up and pointing at a skyscraper or a kite while smiling and explaining something to his child. Using a specific ratio of Asian people to black people to women to white men, we want to make sure we represent your needs and interests, or at least a version of your skin color in our ads. Did we put a baby in here? What about an ethnic old man whose wrinkled smile represents the happiness and wisdom of the poor? Yep.
So guys, what you just saw is what most communication today, corporate films, or the way things are happening, it is so much repetitiveness is there. It is about just about tick marking and checkbox, filling off, and the kind of messaging which comes in, the type of people who are there, CSR, the kind of India needs to be showcased. We need to talk about, various values and qualities. That's how brand communication is happening. And therefore, it is a sea of sameness. With this sea of sameness being there, it becomes very difficult for a brand to sort of really distinguish itself. And I think somewhere, as I said, while you guys put in so many definitions of a brand, it's nice to have a common definition so that, we can use that as a foundation to define how we need to distinguish and how we need to create our content. So I'll quickly sort of share a definition of what a brand is as far as our experience. Let's see if it sort of resonates with you. We say a brand is a sum of all stakeholder impressions at a point in time about an organization, person, or other single identifiable source. I know it's a mouthful, but let's try to see the nuances of it. When you say a brand is a sum, it's not just about a relationship of selling to a customer. It's so many things put together. It's not about one person, all these stakeholders. Note here, everybody, a beautiful word, impressions. Many a times we say impression is what a brand needs to do, right? The fact is, there is somewhere I read a brand is a perception. But do you realize that a brand, if it's a perception, A perception is created. It is something that which cannot happen naturally, whereas impression is a verb. So, for example, I can dress up very nicely in a suit and come in front of you, which is where I'm casting an impression on you. But what happens in your mind, the way you judge me, that is called a perception. And that is a very big definition and a point to note. That if all of us, if we have to understand what's brand and what's branding, then there's a difference between impression and perception at a point in time, because the world is ever evolving, it is changing. So brands, of course, need to be expressive. Well, I'm not saying that a brand does not have to have its core values, like some of you mentioned, but in terms of its thinking, in terms of its ability to understand the world around it, therefore, a brand also works in time, in the continuum of time. And of course, it is from any other single identifiable source. Now, this one, sometimes a brand forms an impression with something as simple as, for example, if one of you call up, say, a Swiggy call center and you have a bad experience, or if you're on an app and if you don't get a response, suddenly that one experience also creates an impression in your mind. And the brand has failed to create an impression which is desired. So, with this definition, if I simply put it in a simple format, and you guys must have heard it, it's what, a brand is something what people say about you when you're not in the room. And I believe a lot of you may have probably heard this. And if we believe this, and if we understand what we spoke about, the idea of impression, perception, a single source in time, and a brand simply then becomes an interface between people and the various stakeholders. And this is something that you will see in textbooks. But one key point which I want to say, and I think we want to share with the people out here, is that most times branding or advertising are all thought to be as parts of marketing. They are at one point of time. But if you look at brand strategy as a function of business, which is the diagram to your right hand side, it is something that percolates not only in the marketing department, but into the various departments. Remember, I said single identifiable source. Therefore, even how a brand behaves with its vendors, how does it behave with its suppliers, employees, all this starts coming into life. And therefore, now, guys, all those definitions that you put in is actually summed up that this is a picture of a brand, that a company and a brand are integral. They work together in tandem. And there is an internal working of a brand and there is an external working of a brand. It's a simplified view, but this is how it looks theoretically. And when I present this to you, obviously it's like an iceberg. So some parts are visible, some are hidden. And therefore, I will close this section by actually telling you that the brand is something which is inside the head of its stakeholders. So we always say brand management, but fact is, you cannot do just brand management. You do something called as branding. So many times, some of you people mentioned that it's about look, feel, website creation. Yeah, it is definitely a part of it. That's branding. But also visioning what the brand is expected to be in the mind of your stakeholders is a brand. I hope this visual is able to give you a picture that branding is a verb and brand is a noun, which is sitting in your head. And I think this is a very fundamental understanding. If we do it, then we know what are we doing in the world of creating communication or helping businesses via either brand or advertising or even PR or various other things that we do, social media and things like that. And therefore, this is just to give you a thing that we use a framework wherein branding therefore becomes what we do. All of us, we are doing branding. And that branding is a system of belief and expression. And that belief could be, so some of you guys mentioned about it being a vision, a persona, which is that system of what it is supposed to be. And then when it comes to life, ad copy, the slogans, the taglines, the colors, this becomes an expression. And therefore, I think it's very simple to put it and leave you with a thought. If you understand the difference between a brand and branding, who we are is the actual intangible or the reason that we exist, our goals, our ambitions, what we put on paper and we try to live every day. And then what comes out is the brand expression, which is how we speak, the words we use, the tone of our voice, and the colors, and how do we sort of, if we have mascots, are we warm? What is our personality? And I think if that is what we are talking about, guys, and if you are able to see that difference, I want to now take a little quick break and show you another little film about a brand. And maybe you guys want to tell me what this brand could be possibly. I'm going to pause it once it plays, but you guys need to tell me what it is. Okay? Ready? I'm sorry I can't see any of you, so I'm just delivering. I hope you are with me.
Many of you feel bad for this lamp. That is because you're crazy. It has no feelings, and the new one is much better.
Guys, I'm going to stop this. Did you hear that last line? I hope all of you did. Neha, you might want to sort of now tell the participants to sort of guess the brand. This is the communication of a brand which you guys know very well. Any idea?
You could just quickly put in the chat box. No, I think, Maulik, you can go ahead.
Okay, as I said, I can't see. So anyway, this brand is, guys, IKEA.
Yep.
Now imagine IKEA at this point of time. This was an ad which was done in 2002. And the fun part is it says about throwing away things. Remember, I said that a brand also plays a role in a point of time. Imagine this ad coming right now and telling, throw it away, buy a new one. There will be people who will be saying, oh, this is not right. And in fact, the brand has adapted. And it has sort of gone ahead by saying that you may want to sort of give your broken furniture back to us, or probably use furniture back to us, and we will sort of upcycle it, recycle it. The point that we are trying to make now is that what you saw in the last few slides was one, that a definition of what a branding is in its most expansive fashion, or the way that we use it. And at the same time, the difference between brand and branding, and actually how good brands are changing themselves and following that. So with that, I will quickly jump into now B2B and B2C brands.
So just before Maulik, you move ahead in this topic, just to summarize the whole section that we had here. The brand is as much internal as it's external. In fact, more internal. And the fact is that if the internal stakeholders start living the brand, that's how the impression is casted externally. If everyone talks the same language, if everyone starts behaving the same way, if employees, the different stakeholders start behaving the same way, so a certain impression is casted, and then the perception about the brand is built. And of course, again, the perception can differ from person to person. For example, a brand for me may mean something different than the same brand for you. For example, if I have to take Amul, for me, Amul might be about taste and quality. For you, it might be purity. So perceptions are different for different people, but that is not in the control of a brand. What a brand can control is how it is casting an impression on the external stakeholders. So to sum up this section, this is what we are, and this is how a brand is different from branding. And then once this foundation is established, it goes on to marketing and advertising.
So we keep these thoughts with you to now enter into the main space of B2C and B2B. I'm sure you people understand that B2C is basically brands which are directly dealing with consumers or the end users in a way. B2B, if you see, is the idea of basically when one business is dealing with another. And the fact is, it might also appear that it is more about relation to relation. In fact, why should somebody be even communicating? What if I tell you guys that if there is a chip manufacturer, and I wish some of you react to this, why should a chip manufacturer advertise itself? Do you know any chip manufacturer who has advertised themselves? No? And what if I say Intel Inside? What comes to your mind? Yes, I think Gagan has heard it. That's what I saw. Immediately you are able to now come up with and see that, oh, Intel is one, and there is a Intel Inside, which was a part of a B2B brand, which tried to influence the customers at the end, and then there were the laptop buyers. So in a way, there can be means and mediums, and B2B somehow seems to be hidden, but it's all around us. What if I tell you that Google and Microsoft are B2B companies? Would you believe me? Guys who want to raise their hands can raise. They are B2B companies. Although, at the end of the day, we are using them as an end user, but there are organizations who also use them to bring it to us in offices, the suites and the various programs. Various organizations which are into something that we feel are consumer brands are also having their own business or B2B elements. I'm not sure how many of you may probably have seen something like this. Airtel business, Amazon business, Decathlon for organizations. This is a very interesting thing. Once upon a time, this was all thought as trade marketing. But today, as we work in this organization, in the B2B space, we are realizing that somewhere down the line, organizations are giving a very, very important, attention. They are not being treated like stepbrothers. People want to understand that B2B should be taken care of, Oh, very good. I can see some of the things out here. NVIDIA.
एक minute.
Sorry. Hello. Yeah. Okay. So I think I can see, I heard in the previous one I missed out. I can see NVIDIA and enterprise businesses. Very correct. So these are parts of which are B2B brands in a way. And some of and this is exactly where many times people feel, should we be doing anything about it or should we not? So it's correct. Do you guys know that Nokia has become now a pure B2B company? While the Nokia brand exists in the phone segment as a B2C brand. So understand the difference between a brand and an organization. But the Nokia, which you see here, is a B2B. Neha, you might want to probably be yes in the mobile tower. Some messages are popping up. I'm unable to capture all of them. It's great to see people are reacting out here. So great, you are able to see that B2B brands are all around us and somewhere down the line, but they do not speak the language of B2C. In fact, in all your sessions and all the work that you do, the Coca-Colas, the Apples are stories that we say. But here we are talking about the idea of how B2B is changing.
So if you've seen most of the B2B brands, when we say it has been hidden till now, it has been taking or riding on the shoulders of the popular consumer brands. Most of the consumer businesses or consumer brands have a B2B side of it, but they have been hidden because they were more about business. They were not about brands. But why we say B2B is changing? Because now they are realizing the power of brand and branding when it comes to B2B. They also need to have their own identity. So that is the reason B2B is now coming to forefront. They are trying to become a part of the mainstream. They are communicating in a very different manner. So we will take you through certain examples, certain case studies of how yeah, I mean, I just read a comment, B2B has more money than B2C. Wonderful, correct. 100%.
In fact, Salesforce has the finest B2B. That's great. So great inputs, guys. And in fact, we will show you some of the reasons how they are doing, the ways how they are doing it. Fantastic.
Go ahead, Maulik.
Cool. So guys, how many of you know that Johnson & Johnson's rebranded recently? Many of you must have seen it, right? All the people. Yes. And what's your reaction to it, guys?
How was it? How was the rebrand?
People did like the new logo. Absolutely. Everybody was fighting over the new logo. I think that Siddesh out there. Hi, Siddesh. Thanks for this. People were fighting that it's a logo. It's a no. Why, guys? Why do you say it's a no? Reaction was why? I still relate to the old logo. Absolutely. But now, if you again, like Apoorv was saying, go back to the idea of brand and branding and the business also, because we said, look at brand as a function of business. People are familiar with the old logo. Everybody was fighting about the logo. And people say, and of course, then there are all these stories around the logo building. There is this ampersand, then there is, the caring. We leave that. And you guys are also reacting that way. But what if we tell you that why wonderful people have said that it should have been this, it was too much simplification. What if we tell you that there was a business behind the design? How many of you have heard of this thing Kenvue in front of you? How many? Anybody heard of it, guys? I would like to now introduce you to the brand building or branding is not done for the sake of logo designs. It is done for the sake of a business objective. Now, yes, you guys may not like the new logo. There are people who may have said, oh, I relate to the old one. But the fact is, Johnson & Johnson decided to create a consumer brand, which is called Kenvue. I can see somebody who says yes, so it's good. And the idea is that Johnson & Johnson, what you see in front of you, that new logo, the way it is, here it is, it became a pure B2B brand in the medical devices. And what you see below are the medtech innovations, which are the various divisions. In fact, somewhere you are also able to see Johnson & Johnson Vision, which is the old logo, but eventually the logo will go and become the new one. But the logo is not the branding. It is the creation of Johnson & Johnson as a B2B corporate brand, which is what happened. And most people do not get into that. And we are trying. Absolutely. In a way, it was not even an M&A. Kenvue was created, Gagan. Good question. It was not an M&A. If you see an example of G, it was a consolidation. It has become 3 points. Great. And that's what, so guys who are in Bombay, you must have seen Johnson & Johnson in Bulun. Today, this Johnson & Johnson is that Kenvue. And all your brands, of course, one big thing was that Johnson's baby powder had its own issues. That got consolidated. So the brand which had a problem or a perception issue, that suddenly went to Kenvue. And Johnson & Johnson, what you saw in the new logo, as you call it, was a new corporate B2B brand. And Kenvue holds all these brands that you guys are familiar with all the Neutrogenas and the Tylenols and the baby soaps and blah, blah, blah. And I think that is the key point that we want to say.
All these decisions are not on the premise of just we want to do a cosmetic change या आज तूफानी करना है तो चलो लोगो बदल दिया बहुत साल से बदला नहीं है. No, there are many strategic objectives behind this. There are issues at a very broader level. They have to also understand different markets. So when Johnson's baby powder, I mean, there were certain controversies that it causes cancer or it has elements of, and there was certain image associated with Johnson and Johnson as a corporate brand. People stopped using products of Johnson and Johnson. So then again, this was one of the aspect to consider where Johnson and Johnson had to be a part of just a B2B offerings, and Kenvue was separately created to offer to the consumer segment.
So I think Ganesh mentions a very nice point. Thank you, Ganesh, for that input. That Johnson, they did not educate the brand change to the end B2C. Yeah, maybe that's a very important point.
Great.
Fantastic. Yes, Sonali, I think that's also, it's something that we would like that people understand why things are happening in the B2B space. I think that's an important thing before just jumping into doing communication and pieces. Great. So therefore, I think it's important, but always it's not about changing logos and creating something new. I want to give a very, very nice particular example of a very big brand, Godrej. You guys are aware of Godrej, right? When Godrej came into the market, this is what it was, a red color thing. But it did not change. Of course, it created a new logo, but it did not change its shape because at that point of time, the curves were visual recognition. A lot of people recognize the consumer brand. So, Ganesh, when you put that point about they did not educate, maybe at that point of time, maybe, they missed it, but Godrej probably thought that at least my brand should remain in the minds of people. So they let the curves be, although the colors came in, at the end of the day. But the beautiful part of this particular exercise was that for B2B, after doing the change, what do I do with the birds and the bees and all these beautiful colors? Any idea? What if I tell you that Godrej has got businesses in the space of precision engineering, material handling, this thing, your precision lighting? What do you do? Okay, Ganesh, they do. But I think we are talking about not about the men. We are talking about the idea of how does it work in the B2B space. And I think this is where a problem came for Godrej. And I want to show you how they had to then use that little thing. So Nike's got a swoosh, Godrej got this little ribbon, and each of that particular ribbon element had to be converted for becoming a recognizable thing for a particular business vertical. So if you see, this is how it all came to life. What you're seeing out here are simply renditions of it. Why am I sharing this with you is that in B2B, sometimes attention is not given. So when brand changes happen or when communications are happening, sometimes B2B does not get its due, but then work has to happen. I believe with this little thing in front of you, you are able to understand the nuances of what B2B is undergoing and changes are happening. So let me jump into something more interesting and then we have to get into unboring. I've got a little time to sort of show you some amazing things, but let's play along, and your inputs are great, guys. Keep them coming. I will be seeing them from here. Real estate also, great, Devesh. So guys, you've heard of Zomato, everybody? Yes, I'm sure. How many of you have heard of? How many have you heard Hyperpure? How many? Yes. Those who have heard, say yes. If not, say no. Okay. I can see a lot of no. I can see some yes. Okay. Great. Now, what if Hyperpure is the B2B version of Zomato. It does deliveries to the hospitality sector or to the hotels. Horeca, which is the hotels, restaurants, and cafes. And you know what the beautiful part about this thing is? That you remember we always said it was trade marketing, enterprises. In certain cases, organizations decide to have the main brand or the brand which is already popular as an endorsement, which is what you see in Hyperpure. But it does not start this way. It started something like this, guys, wherein it did a testing. It wanted to understand, therefore it was a buy Zomato quietly before it became this. And now the question to you, why am I sharing this with you, is if this shift has happened and is it worthy to belong to Zomato ka parivar? Guys, do you think Hyperpure should use this kind of language? It is B2B. Why should it be communicating like this? So all the content writers, copywriters, strategists, planners out here, should Zomato be doing this kind of imagery in front of you? Sorry, Hyperpure, should it be doing this kind of imagery? Do you think so? Do you guys have seen, you guys know, right? Siddesh, yeah, why you should not do it is what you feel, right? But you have seen Zomato talking all this language of, doodh mangoge, kheer deva, and things like that. But what if I tell you that because a brand is so powerful and because a brand knows itself very well, people trust Zomato, so using your Zomato builds trust. But of course, is it about Hyperpure? What if I tell you, you people said no, but what if I tell you this is what Hyperpure did? Have a look at it and let's talk.
ये क्या काट रहे हो? वक्त काट रहा हूँ शेफ, क्योंकि ब्रोकली वाला वेंडर तो अभी तक आया नहीं। क्या पका रही हो ये?
वहाँ नहीं पका रही शेफ, क्योंकि बॉक्स वाइट तो बिल्कुल सड़ी हुई आई है। तो गेस्ट को क्या देंगे?
रुको इधर, इसमें कुछ तो डाल लो। डाला ना शेफ, प्रॉफिट मार्जिन, ग्रोसरी के रेट्स बढ़ गए हैं ना।
रिलैक्स, सप्लाई चेन टूटी होती तो ऐसे ही चलता हमारा किचन। नाउ वेलकम योर न्यू ग्रोसरी पार्टनर जोमेटो हाइपरप्योर। ऑन टाइम डिलीवरी के साथ साथ रीजनेबल प्राइसिंग, टॉप क्वालिटी इंग्रेडिएंट्स और सब इंग्रेडिएंट्स एक ही जगह से। गेट टाइमली डिलीवरी विद कंसिस्टेंट क्वालिटी एंड रीजनेबल प्राइसेस। अब हर बात पर रहिए श्योर, जस्ट गेट ऑन जोमेटो हाइपरप्योर।
The idea is not to just tell you how beautiful or brilliant the advertising is. The idea is to tell you that this is what we probably say is a glimpse of unboring. It could be functional. Most of you said no, that Zomato should be not doing these kind of advertising or communication. But while they do functional communication, which you see in front of you, which is again beautiful, they are also using the Zomato kind of personality to talk. So imagine, white products chahiye kya, competitive price chahiye kya, mil jayega. Remember that meme which took place? So the point is, a brand can do these things and it's happening. In fact, guys, I want to share with you something very interesting, that when the Chandarana took place, B2B brands beautifully put up social media posts. So if you see, there is, KFC, McDonald's, and what did B2B brands do? All of them, congratulations, congratulations, congratulations. There was nothing more. And this is a particular thing which you guys, we have a page called Unboring B2B on LinkedIn. You might find this out there if you want to have a look at it later. But what did Zomato do? It went a step forward and it said, oh great, it also appears very boring, TK 2023, but it went one step by saying 2050 mein aisa kuch hoga, where we will deliver there also. Suddenly it is able to take that messaging to a big level, and that is the power of communication. That is the power of knowing what your brand is. And this is what is today happening in the B2B space. Not everywhere, but this was some glimpses. We thought it was necessary to tell you. So what we are leaving you with this section, and we close before we get into the finale of it, that B2B is not but also. Many times people are like, B2B mein, theek hai, bech denge. We will give them like a bulk mein. But and many times people are like, this is only thing that we do. It is about understanding what role a particular brand plays in the business, either as a B2B or as a B2C. I think that understanding now propels us into the thing of how do we sort of take B2B ahead. And it is not about B2B versus B2B. And that's why this section was called B2B and the B2C. I hope you are able to sort of get the idea of and not a versus.
Also, one small key takeaway here. I don't know how many of you noticed it. Initially it was Hyperpure by Zomato, and later on it became Zomato Hyperpure. क्या फर्क पड़ता है Zomato ऊपर लिखो या नीचे? But it makes a lot of difference. It's called as endorsement principle. For example, if I have to tell you, there is Tata Motors, Tata 1MG, and there is Titan, a Tata Enterprise. So the corporate brands have an endorsement principle of how they want to endorse the sub brand or the brand which is part of the family. So even when I have to give you a Tata example, Tata has a gamut of brands, house of brands. Based on where the brand stands in the whole ecosystem, Tata gives an endorsement. The Tata Sun, which is the whole trust that governs all the brands, takes a part of profit share from each of these companies, because these are independent companies in themselves. So if it's Tata Motors, if Tata is lending its main name in the brand, the corporate brand, it will take more profit share. But if it's like something like a Titan, an Enterprise, or a Chroma, a Tata Enterprise, the profit share is lesser. कल जाके अगर Titan या Chroma वो level पे आता है, it might become a Tata Chroma or a Tata Titan, So I mean, these are endorsement principles just for you guys to have a key takeaway in this one.
Ganesh, I think, thanks, Apoorv. Ganesh, I think you're also saying a very good thing. The most important thing Ganesh says out here is to uncover the value of that, the business can project to the customer. Absolutely. But should it be doing it in the way which is quote unquote boring, or should it do in a way which is the Saint Gobain way, maybe like as Ganesh is giving an example. So it's good. I think this is where we are. And with this understanding, we will enter into something that is called Unboring B2B. So guys, just to tell you, both Apoorv and while we have been in this industry for so long, we have worked with so many brands, so many companies. Somewhere we found that B2B brands were very, very bland. They thought, or rather they still do. I wouldn't say the things that, sort of have changed radically, but efforts are happening. Most people thought it's about events, one-on-one relationship building. And, that's it. Business can keep coming from one set of clients, but it's not. In fact, many of you, when you said no for the Zomato Hyperpure doing the communication the way it did, it realized that its target audience is actually sitting, the restaurant owners are actually sitting on, on the social medias. They are actually sort of scrolling. So that's the best place to touch them. And Ganesh, yeah, so we are not going to be we're not going to be unboxing, we're going to be unboring the brand. At the end of the day, Ganesh, I can see good inputs from there. So we came onto this particular thing where we want to sell what is unboring B2B, and we are going to show you a small little, like a pitch or a request that we do to B2B brands. So what you see right now is how we are actually talking to the industry and to B2B brands, and then I'll take you forward into what unboring is. Here goes. So what we are trying to say is that a brand that is remembered is a brand that is bought. This is a belief that we are trying to tell B2B brands. And please, there's a difference between jo dikhta hai, wo bikta hai. In B2C, it's about jo dikhta hai, bikta hai. In B2B, we are saying that you need to be remembered, because the buying of B2B products does not happen every day. It happens probably once a few years. It depends on, the kind of requirements that come in. You need to get on the consideration list of the buyer. In fact, it is a whole new, depth which we can go into understand B2B, market space and marketing. We'll not get into them, but I thought this is important to let you know that because of the buying cycle, because of the nature of B2B, you need to be considered. That's the first step. And therefore, we say to be considered, creativity can win the day for B2B, which is exactly what B2B brands are not doing openly. And we want to tell you how we are getting into unboring B2B for a business purpose. So we feel that businesses or B2B brands can optimize and save themselves money by using their own media and earned media. Of course, everybody's on social media. Why shouldn't B2B brands be there? But of course, it is so much content. So just like B2B, B2C brands are struggling, B2B brands also need to, get a space. And in fact, B2B is considered boring. So why will they stop? Even B2C struggles. One very interesting thing, that is the third point, is that while in the B2C brand, there are roles, or segments, in B2B, there are profiles. So for example, I might be say a procurement officer at a company, but when I'm in say a shadi or a wedding, and if I encounter a brand, I could possibly be your future buyer. And this is exactly where a brand that is remembered is a brand that is bought aspect comes into being. And of course, you can get amazing talent in the space of B2B. Talent attraction is a huge thing and something that can help when we do unboring. So we'll show you a video. What we talk is about doing unboring B2B, but it is not done just for the sake of doing it. It is about thinking strategically and acting crazy. You don't do mad stuff. You don't do stupid things just because you want to get noticed. You need to get business results. And I told you, and I promised you, we'll show you one video to give you an example of it. And there are some more examples. Have a look at this and you'll realize what we're talking about. A B2B brand trying to attract talent. Have a look at it and tell me if it makes you laugh or not.
Are you hungry for a new opportunity? Then a career at Deloitte may be right for you. We collect the biggest, brightest, juiciest brains to help our team shape the future. Discover the chance to put your brains to good use, helping to nourish some of the world's largest organizations and solve their meatiest challenges.
Andrea, your 2 o'clock is here.
Fresh recruits. Email us at recruits@deloitte.com.
Now, to you guys, I mean, the fact is, they could have very nicely said, come for a functional particular role is there and stuff like that. But they created a zombie manager, and everybody knows at the end of the day, you have to work very hard at Deloitte. Using that particular, sort of perception, they played on it. And this is interesting. This is not a B2C outreach. I mean, in a way, you can consider that, Ganesh, it's right. But one of the objectives of B2B doing Unboring is to get talent. So yes, in a way, it is a B2C, but the point is, we would still say it is for its benefit. So Ganesh, that's a right point. But that was one of the objectives of being Unboring. Great. I'm not going to go through this. This is a particular thing in which we can have a lovely thought. But guys, some of you mentioned about Salesforce, everything. I'm going to run through this, what Unboring means. It's just 5 little examples. And then you'll get a fair idea of what it could be. There are various aspects of B2B which can be impacted. And you'll realize what it is. So 5 illustrations. Yeah, there's a slide in front of you guys. Take a guess using the picture, using the line on the top. What brand do you think this is that I'm going to talk about? Quickly, we're going to run through this. Nike, somebody says Nike.
It's a B2B brand.
Now I say it's a B2B brand. It is not a B2C brand, guys. Go for it. Pinkathon, okay, no. It's a B2B brand. Any guess? What if I give you a clue? It is one of the India's largest tech firm, most valuable tech firm. Siddesh, you got it. Why? Because I said that? Not Nike, Kritika. Well, this is the story of India's top valued technology firm, which is breaking convention by having an identity which is pink in color. So the technology firms, if you see, this is the logo of it. So most of you guys were talking about logo, but even doing that in an unboring fashion. All the technology firms, if you see, are blues and silvers and, grays and stuff. But here is a brand which says, I want to have this human touch. And I am going for a pink color at the end of the day. So, of course, there's a lot of stories and stuff. So I'm just going to give you aspects of what Unboring are. Each of them deserves its own conversation. But I'll rush through. And this is Unboring, wherein you reinvent the norm. And this is TCS. Here's another brand, which is basically in the aviation space. Naming is a very important thing. What if I tell you that there is a brand called as, you already know this, which is called Dreamliner. In an aviation sector, you have most of the planes calling themselves 787, 737, 747. But here is a thing, most of you, which calls itself a Dreamliner. It creates a name for something which is by numbers, something like an ingredient branding. That's the strategy. And it is breaking the mold in the aerospace, category by saying that it is an invitation to airlines, saying that you have bought me, and therefore Qantas, Air India, Singapore, everybody is saying, oh, I've got a Dreamliner. In fact, even a Vistara till today, even for the variation of a Dreamliner, advertises and shouts it out. Sorry, guys, I mean, we could have had a beautiful conversation around it, but in lieu of the light, I'm running through this. So there's an example of how, Unboring happens by a naming. Okay, you take a guess at this. What brand is this? Very simple, I guess. You guys will take it. Right? Cat. Very good. Because it's in front of you. What if I tell you this is McDonald's? Will you believe me? Maybe not. But actually, this is the example of, yes, Cat, Siddesh, you're right. This is what is called as McDonald's of the heavy industrial space. This is Unboring its space by actually creating an entire range of merchandise. So what we feel as toys or, all these color booklets and stuff, it is nurturing future talent by actually trying to bring them in or bring them in early. It's a very planned way. And in fact, guys who are paying attention, you notice in the copycat slide, the girl is having a particular toy in her hand. It is not a cat, it is a JCB. So when a brand does it so beautifully, somebody else in the industry also copies it. So that is the story of cat. One of you guys mentioned it out here, and I think, anybody, do you guys know of any B2B brands in having a mascot? Anybody? And what if I tell you that there is a brand here right in front of you? This is sales. I know you would say that because this was that, but that's true. So Salesforce is a brand which has not one but 12 mascots, and they are all in front of you, and each of them playing a specific role with various departments. Of course, they manifest themselves internally also, they manifest themselves externally also. And this is the story of Salesforce, which utilizes mascots, which is not really done traditionally or does not done intelligently, if I were to say so. And that is important. And the reason is to inspire the company culture, to simplify technology and make it somewhere a part of the, the entire system, if I could say so. And lastly, I believe you guys are going to say this is Rajasthan Royals, right? Well, most of the brands today talk this big thing about brand purpose, and it's another thing which we can talk about. But this is the story of Schneider. Schneider has actually done a collaboration, a purposeful collaboration with Rajasthan Royals team, and they are talking about creating sustainability by the team itself being carbon neutral or sustainable practices. And that is an interesting thing. While this might seem to be one-off, it is not. It is not a sponsorship. In fact, if you come and do things like, many people are like, we are your solar energy partner, we are your XYZ partner. But here is Schneider saying, I'm not your XYZ partner, but I'm actually helping you do it. I'm actually sort of taking that message across. Here are 5 examples which illustrate how B2B brands are unboring. Of course, these are facets, but I believe you are able to get an idea of how differences can be made. In fact, I think we are almost good at part of it. I'm going to show you just quick examples of some of our recent work. And then we are happy to sort of have, yes, all these are interesting examples of major organizations and tweaking the color of logos and all. If you could let us know what experience some of the organizations have done. Yeah, maybe we could catch up on that. Give me some time, Ganesh. I'm coming on that. So what if I tell you that here is an example of a recent work. We were told to create the ESG report. So you guys are aware of ESG, I believe, the environmental sustainability and governance. It's a big thing today, a report. And we came across and we said, of course, it's going to be a boring report, right, at the end of the day. But so we work for this client. It is called Evonet Steel. And we created this report with the theme of Warli art. It is based in Varda side, Nagpur. And we said, because it's all about community. And of course, there is the entire brand messaging at the core, which is on the heart of people. So I'm just showing you snippets of how something which is probably just mere pictures becomes more thematic. I mean, there was another very interesting thing. Of course, there was a microsite which you guys are seeing in front of you. I'm just giving you glimpses of how it can go beyond. While these are all surface level things, I'm giving you an example of what we did for their Women's Day. For Women's Day, we did a gimmick, quote unquote, but that gimmick was for a day. We named the company as Evonet Steel with an H coming in. Now, you people might say, iska kya? So the fact is, we wanted people to know that it is an organization which is now moving towards getting a lot of women force into the system, and also an initiative which they have launched ahead. Inclusion and diversion. And the fact is, we came up with this program which is called as Making Steel Stronger. Now, this particular, while that steel, the logo which you saw was for a day, but the initiative is something which has gone ahead and is today in process and going ahead. So, of course, this is how it is sort of being communicated. These are the various posts which you see from the, the main brand speaking. There are people who sort of take it forward, the website. And very interesting, guys. I mean, of course, we can talk about these cases. So you see that there is this triplex where my mouse is, if you can see it. This is also very clear communication in their communication pillar called as Here for People. So that's another unboring thing. Of course, as I said, it's not about acting crazy. There is a lot of thought and a lot of thinking and strategy thinking, which is guiding the brand and its objectives. A lot of brands talk about building communities, and B2B, and when I say community, it is not about Harley Davidson, bikers and all. The idea is that there are a lot of influencers in the B2B space. We are working for a medtech company and a medical devices company. And recently we did a communication wherein we are doing an outreach for nurses, and it is going on. I'm going to show you a quick film about it. And it's a series and of course a program, but you may be able to appreciate, at least on surface, how the communication and movements are happening. Here goes. So the first part where the brand integrated and introduced itself to the nurses. It goes ahead in the second film. So I think somewhere down the line, you are getting an idea of what we are talking about. Ganesh, you mentioned about tweaks and all. As I said, what we are showing you right now are simply portions of some amount of communication or, some sort of initiatives done, but they are not done for the sake of it. They are all rooted in a proper thinking. And that is something that could become a case which we would love to probably take you through maybe in future when we have time. So good. Thank you, Ganesh, again noticing that H also. Basically, that is a part of their logo and it forms something which we call as an action mark.
Action mark.
So it is like an exclamation, but in the system, it is defined as an action mark. It is about, because whenever you do something, you're like, wow, it's about reminding that you need to be on your toes, no tomorrow for care.
So their brand essence is no tomorrow for care, and the action mark supports it by showing the urgency. So being into the medical space, you cannot wait for tomorrow. The emergency is today, you need to act today. And that is the reason the visual and the verbal aspects are connected to the whole essence of the brand.
In fact, now I think to also tell you guys some very interesting thing. Many a times in B2B brands, if I forget B2B, but many businesses in India have started as family businesses, and therefore sometimes you will find, say, Srinathji and Sons, or you will find things like that having names. So it's not tweaks, Today, some brands are going so much more behind. Coming to that, Nikita, give a few minutes on that. I'll come back to that. Some of the companies are going a little forward in the B2B space. Imagine an industrial, floor washer. Imagine they have names like this. It could be probably Wash Boy. There is a company which is providing something called, which is cooling solution. We talked about cold storage solution that calls itself Ice Boy, And of course, these are not some of the biggest of the things, but these are some of the changes in which people are thinking. They are wanting to get noticed. And we are presenting this to you so that you are able to appreciate that creativity can become a hook on which B2B brands can go forward. And that, as I said, Unboring is not simply a fun or a thing, like for example, Helmi, you guys, so we created an ET tube. Now the ET tube, this one is made of PU, which is like, normal ones are of PVC, which is plastic. What you see in front of you is PU, which is polyurethane, and it is much softer and better to use. What you see as the name Softier is a name that we created so that the surgeons and the people are immediately able to sort of recognize and its communication can be done. So things of this sort, while they might appear one-off, but they are not. They are a part of a larger thinking of organizations. And in a way, it is unboring. So Softier. And of course, in the medical field, there are so many rules that are to be taken care of today because of, the mandates coming in. And in fact, also things like that, you cannot make claims. You can't say softer. Yes, it is. And it is a medical device startup. It is.
In the Indian market.
In the Indian market. Absolutely. Ganesh, that's to answer you, since you were asking. Yeah. So this is how it comes to life. And what we want to close it on is saying that, guys, I'm sure a lot of you are working on different brands. Many of you aspire to make your careers. This journey of B2B is long. There is a lot more to say, but it's happening. And I want to thank all of you to sort of give us a hearing and sort of being with us to understand what we are trying to do and what the feelings that we are having. I hope you have had some takeaways and maybe you will contribute to this mission of Unboring B2B in your own way. Thank you. And with this, we are open for questions and for further conversations. So, Neha, over to you.
So our unboring stick figures are back. We started with the boring images, but these are who we actually represent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Maulik and Apoorv. We have a few questions here in the chat box. And one of them, Ganesh, says that going back to the presentations, what you have gone through, just a reflection, all these interesting examples are from major organizations and tweaking the color of the logos to convey the message. It would be great if you could tell us what experiences some of the organizations have done.
No, when you say see, the bigger organizations, obviously, as I said, Ganesh, I think I mentioned it in the passing also. These might appear like little things, but they are not the only things that they are doing. Those were just 5 illustrations to show you aspects that what things you can use. They are a part of a larger strategy. For example, let me tell you TCS as an example. What if I tell you TCS has only 5% of its business revenue coming from India, and yet it is only sort of doing so much communication in India. It is also taking up a Noida, railway station, metro station in Delhi and saying it is TCS Noida station. Why do you think it is doing that? 95% of its business is outside this country. The reason is because talent comes from here. So there was a question about or something about talent which was being mentioned. The fact is organizations or brands have different objectives at different levels. All of this come together and they work in synergy, identifying and assuring that they do. I think that is the main effort which both brands as well as people like us have to do. So there are going to be multiple examples. Ganesh, I hope I'm able to sort of give you an idea of what we are talking about. Yeah, go on.
Okay. Nikita Shetty says that what is it behind the new logo of TCS?
Absolutely. Again, I think TCS is the flavor of the season. Maybe we should do a longer. So, yeah. So the fact is, if you see Tata as a whole, I think Apoorv was speaking about the Tata brand endorsement system and everything a while ago.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to just sort of jump into it, saying TCS has actually, in fact, even broken that norm. If you go to see,
Yes. So on the holistic level, there are certain guidelines that each brand needs to follow when they are in they're part of the ecosystem. When it comes to TCS, the first big reason was TCS being an industry leader. They want to set an example. They want to show themselves and retain their position as a leader. That is the reason they want to break out of the clutter of the blues and the grays. That was one thing of having a pink color in that logo. Another thing was, it was not just about the logo, it was about how they were planning to build their teams. They started hiring people from different backgrounds, from different agencies, even people who are good at storytelling, people who have worked in different agencies. They were a part of, they started becoming a part of TCS internal team. So this is not just a बस logo change करना है करके कर दिया. Also, there is a big difference. If you know, TCS sponsors these marathons internationally, globally. Whereas if you see Infosys sponsors Wimbledon.
or tennis,
so, or tennis. So why does Infosys does not do marathon, and why does TCS does not do a tennis sponsorship? Objectives are different. TCS wants to show, because it is showing that we are more human. They want to register the statistics of how a person vitals are when they are running. So they want to capture that data. They want to show we are more attached to human. Whereas Infosys, uska main jo the way they portray themselves are we capture what is in terms of the velocity when the players are playing tennis. What is the speed? What are the statistics? So these are different objectives. Even sponsor करने के लिए नहीं करते. There are certain strategic objectives that are attached.
In fact, do you know, in the Wimbledon there are so many CEOs and decision makers who are saying, remember that slide which we spoke about, profile of a person? The person sitting there could be probably who will remember, oh, Infosys is the one who's calculating the data and giving it. So maybe they'll be considered to be bought whenever a system of that sort is required. So I hope that answers, Nikita. Yeah.
Another question I'm going to, this is again from Ganesh, saying that I was super keen to understand and learn how to do B2B brands, do a persona study, since there are several stakeholders involved. Is there a framework for persona study you follow?
No, there are actually, and in fact, this is one big thing happening today is that, see, it's very simple to sort of, there are something called as buyer personas, and in B2B, there's something called as buying committees. These committees are basically consist of people with different sort of roles to play. So there are gatekeepers, there are influencers. So remember we showed you the nurses. Now one might say, why does somebody need to reach out to nurses at the end of the day, right? I'm just going to give you, Ganesh, that you have to actually identify roles of people and then the personas thereof and how they sort of play a role in the buying. So for example, nurses do not simply go and buy a particular product, but they are the ones who are administrating products. They are the ones who understand what works for, the patient's best. They are the ones who are able to tell the doctor and send out information that this is good, that is not good. And suddenly that doctor also influences that buying to the management at the end of the day, or to the patients for that matter of fact. It's a cyclic thing. So with that coming into play, you are able to sort of, with the roles, you are having frameworks in place wherein personas are defined in general, and then communication messages or possibly outreaches are done for them. So Ganesh, there are various ways to look at it, and there are frameworks which exist to do it. But as I said, understanding the B2B aspect in particular, different industries is also important. For example, the B2B of a textile, for example, buying clothes, it might just appear that everything is just go to a store or go to a Myntra and buy. But there is a huge chain which is happening right from the weavers to probably the guy who creates the cloth, to the dye makers, and then this particular thing's going ahead. It's a value chain which continues. And at which level are you sitting is where you sort of apply these personas and the kind of methodologies to decide of what you're going to take things forward. Ganesh, I hope I was able to answer you, for your thanks. Yeah.
Okay. Another question from Siddesh. Siddesh says, any tips to make B2B company branding on the LinkedIn Unboring?
Lots of it.
You saw Avonish Steel example. That was one of them. But of course, that was not just for the Women's Day. It was the whole program that was created around diversity and inclusion, of how women can be included in the workforce, how they can be made more inclusive in the work environment.
So again, another point to add is here, and nice question there. A brand building on LinkedIn does not work by only the brand putting up its page and doing fantastic content. It has to be supported by the people who are attached with it. It could be, of course, employees, but of course, just telling employees, please post there, I've joined, or just, put up pictures is not the way. It has to be guided naturally. One, leadership also has to take a particular initiative, that if there is one particular type of post going, then maybe leadership for a particular fashion has to do, say, supporting posts. Maybe HR will have to do that. So it is possible, and there are ways to do it, and it should be planned. It should not be ad hoc. Unfortunately, a lot of B2B companies only do Happy New Year, Happy Diwali, Happy XYZ. And that is unfortunately the big thing. I'm not saying it is a wrong thing, but that's the only thing that they focus on. And trends drive it. Imagine when Zomato did that doodh mangoge, kheer denge. A lot of B2B companies were wanting to do it at that point of time. And we asked a lot of companies why, and that unfortunately is also the reality of the B2B space. So many B2B companies do not even have updated websites because many of them do not even think that the business is there. So this, to answer your question, will also require us to understand what is the application of digital for businesses. Of course, having said that, largely digital is becoming important for everybody. And Nikita, I hope your question is answered. Yeah.
Okay. We have another question from Apoorv Biswas. Says B2B brands that are startups or really not that well known need to invest heavily in explaining their product services. And hence their communications are majorly content heavy. What should they do to be minimal in their communications and yet convey their solutions clearly?
I think Helmia was one example, I think, in front of you. These are startups, and these are people who are trying to make a dent in the organization. In fact, to answer you, one important thing is that many a time people don't even think that brand building should be done. Because as I remember when we started this session, we said that most people think of brand building as logos and simply websites and things like that. And sometimes they're like, kya zarorat hai, pehle dhanda banate. I'm using this verbatim in front of you. But those organizations who decide to do it and put in heart and effort, it's not easy also. The truth of the matter is they also have to be conveyed to and convinced that you should do it minimally. You should do it such that it is consistent. It's not easy, but it's happening. And over a period, as people understand that brand building is something which is something to be done over and over again consistently, and it gives results in the long term, which is actually a truth. People who choose to do that will get results. That would be our input.
So even if it's a startup, they need to take a stand. They need to, if they really want to also save on the cost and not invest time and efforts and monies into creating a lot of content, they need to break that monotony. They need to take a stand of how they can be unboring in a very minimalistic way, But taking that stand in itself is a very big step. Most of the B2B brands go first by कि हमको पहले धंधा करना है. First, business is important. Then ठीक है, branding, marketing तो होते रहेगी. And then at the end, they realize कि नहीं, हम लोग तो वही बेच रहे हैं जो 4 और लोग बेच रहे हैं वहाँ पे. So how do you create a differentiation and how do you take a stand is much more important. It does not need कि you need to do heavy investment in one go. No. Yeah.
Okay, now Maulik and Apoorv, I have a question. Most
Oh.
of them from this is a little bit from the realistic side that when you two work on a brand, for example, even it's steel,
Oh.
there is not just two people who work on this. There is a team of art directors, copywriters, strategists,
Yes.
also the designer. Can you just explain that it's an idea what comes? How do you implement it? How equally important is the copywriter and the art director who's putting in that correct visuals, the correct words by which it makes that ad very, very appealing? What is the whole essence and the process, and how important are these also? Because what you see at the end is like a contribution of many things together. It's not just an idea what comes to your mind and you put it on the paper. There's certain things what goes behind. If you could just help us say the process and gist.
So yeah, Neha, to answer you, I would first like to, I mean, you of course know this, but I would first like to tell you how a typical advertising process works. So there's a lot of silos. The account manager or the client servicing person gets a brief. They pass on the brief to the creative department. Creative department works on it. They send it to the account manager. Account manager coordinates with the client, etc. That's how the process is. The big thing here is there is a big silos here. The creative team often does not understand the business of the client. Account director to an extent do understand the business. That is where the catch is. So if you ask us, our process is we first immerse in the business. We call it an immersion process. Then we first like to understand what the business is. So in the immersion, it's not just we strategists that who immerse. Our creative team as well is involved from day one. If they understand the business and then we come up with a strategy, they are able to translate that strategy into design and communication. And then copywriters know what the brand is, know who the stakeholders are, know what the customers are expecting. And then I think it's a very easy solution for everyone. I mean, clients are also, and it's also that we also involve clients in the whole process. We don't work again in silos. Clients are collaboratively काम करते, so they also feel that they're a part of the whole process, and that is how the solutions are easily accepted and fleshed out.
In fact, Neha, one interesting thing is because this is the B2B space, it becomes all the more important for us to sort of be collaborative. That's one point that I want to put in. It is not about ke aur dikhao ya fir concept. If we understand that correctly at the first go, we are able to do that. And just also sort of for your reference and everybody else's, many of the brands that we work with, we have also worked with them from the time that they've been incepted. Yeah. So when you incept it, you also know the background. And when you know the background and if it is clear, then it's very easy to sort of translate and communicate it to different stakeholders or teams also. Even when we are not involved directly, it's easily taken. Other agencies can also take them over. So this is how the process works. And frankly speaking, and I'm sure you also will agree that today the world is no more about delivery from one office to another or from one team to another. It's not the case, yeah.
Yes. Thank you. One more question from Shriyant Ganesh. As a branding agency helping other businesses build their brands, we as branding agency sometimes fail to do the same for ourselves. How does a branding agency build their own brand while working with other brands?
This is fantastic. Again, this has unfortunately been the bane or the problem for our own industry as well when it comes to setting rules for. See, we are also B2B, by the way, right? I think those people who are having their own agencies, this is also sort of a B2B. The fact that the way we sort of apply the principles of standing for something or having consistency in communication or having an active marketing department, many of them are not there, But if we are able to sort of do them and if we are able to understand, so for example, it's not about we putting advertisements for a branding agency. Even our own media, like for example, an Instagram page or a LinkedIn page, are mediums which can be utilized very effectively to communicate. But why don't we do it is because time nahi hota. Many times the realities also hit. We are busy servicing, clients. There is work happening. But if we decide to sort of give some time, if we decide to stand for something, so for example, today we are on this mission of unboring B2B. Just to give an example of us, for that matter of fact, we are having pages, we are doing interactions with people, we meet people from the industry, we meet students also, trying to tell them that there is a career and you will get that kind of satisfaction which is attached with it. We have chosen our mission, let's put it that way. I'm loving the fact in some of the comments I saw unboxing. Maybe it will take us time to even tell people that it's not unboxing, it's unboring. But sorry, but we accept that. And I think many agencies need to do that. One, to begin with. Two, again, this big word we spoke in the last question, collaboration. I think a lot of agencies as a whole need to collaborate also to give the best to the client, but within an understanding of their own selves also. So I say, again, maybe I can go into a big monologue about this. Maybe I should not, Neha, but I think it is for agencies of different shapes, sizes, also to come together to decide how they add value to the client as a whole, and then also define their own individual identities. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you. We have Avinash Ramchandar says that I have an unboring question. I work in the B2B content and podcast company, helping companies with their employee engagement. What are some creative ways for B2B companies to engage on social media? And more importantly, how to build an audience? Also, could you suggest creative ways of engaging my B2B client through mailers and social media, like HR managers and senior
Avinash is
management?
asking for a solution, it
Solution,
seems.
yeah. Avinash, we should meet.
Yeah. Avinash was constantly saying that please answer my question. So I think Avinash, you can get in touch with Maulik and Apoorv. We
Yeah.
will be happy to share their email addresses with you.
Avinash, good question. And I think it is a part of the whole process which you saw. I mean, it'll be very difficult to answer everything by point, but happy to sort of take this offline and have a conversation with you. Yeah.
Okay. One more question. I think he's just putting his own thoughts, but I would still read out to you. I remember an ad campaign from Kirloskar, invisible yet omnipresent. Brilliant way to put across their manage about their wide offerings.
Nice. In fact, you should see Kirloskar has recently rebranded also. You might find some of these, in fact, to maybe this might answer a part of Avinash's question. And, the fact that most of the B2B communications till today were very clinical. When I say clinical, they will utilize things like machines, they will describe parts, or there'll be, if there are people, so engineers will be there, or, wearing those, or workers with those hats and stuff like that. But today, some of these communications, if you see as you say, Unboring, they are using kids. Let me give you an example. For example, Mitsubishi. Kirloskar itself is using kids, Now, that is a very interesting start. But you don't do it just because I want to do something tufani. Like Apoorv mentioned, कि कुछ चलो आज कुछ नया करते तो इसीलिए चलो बच्चों को डालते. Let's find the reason of introducing these elements into the communication. The moment you are able to understand the brand's objectives, you are going to be able to take forward and introduce these elements. So like kids for that matter of fact, or even mascots for that matter of fact, then they don't become props. Then they become part of something called as brand assets, which then contribute to the brand building its presence across. So for example, today the Amul girl is one of the biggest examples that has stayed with the brand and is actually helping the brand. Of course, it's in the B2B, B2C space, but why not? Why cannot that be possible for a B2B brand? Is a question which we'd like to ask, even if it is not there. So yeah, I hope that sort of is a good response to the thoughts.
Okay, we were loving the energy here. Certainly Miami Ad School is appreciating the energy being put by Siddesh, Ganesh, Avinash, and others here, participants. But another question from Siddesh, is newsletter still a thing in B2B branding?
Oh, very much. Very much. But unfortunately, everybody's offering the same things over and over again. Standing out is difficult. In fact, we did not show it to you, but maybe we'll leave you with one very interesting thought. And this maybe you guys want to ponder. The people say that the world has changed after the pandemic. So most people say there is a pre-COVID world and there is a post-COVID world. What we both, and as an organization, we are realizing it is, and just to put it in a way, there is a pre-chat GPT world and there is a post-chat GPT world. Why are we trying to say this is that already before the COVID, or before the time of even chat GPT, there were communication which were absolutely sort of repetitive. In fact, the first video that we played, you saw the language That's how most communications are. Most corporate videos use the same stock imagery. ChatGPT is going to be giving you the same kind of tonalities and stuff until, of course, you learn it. But the fact is, if that is going to become so repetitive, the sea of sameness is going to be propagated over and over again. Imagine if B2C brands themselves cannot escape, how are B2B brands going to escape? And that's a huge challenge. And maybe this is the time to possibly, therefore, help and get into this B2B bandwagon and try to make it unboring. Maybe this is the most amazing space with all that it has to create something new. So newsletters, yes, is a thing, but keeping in mind the context which I spoke of, maybe the pre-ChatGPT world and the post-ChatGPT world. I mean, somewhere down the line, you don't want to get lost. I think that is where we stand. Yeah.
Okay. How many channels can you use in B2B marketing and what are they?
Nice question. Again, as I said, it will be conceptual, but there are quite a lot which you can. But
also depends on the stakeholders, where your stakeholders are present. What are the touch points? Identifying those touch points, accordingly, then working on those channels, what communication needs to go on a specific channel. So
I'm sure most of you know, as I told you a while ago, Facebook tha, chalo Facebook pe, let's be there. But why to be there, nobody knows. So I think to answer the question, maybe you should evaluate why you should be present on probably every channel available. Evaluate. The keyword is evaluate. Answer whether your TG is there. If it is there, what are you going to talk to them? If you are able to have justifiable answers, that's when you jump onto that channel.
A B2B brand can be on Instagram.
A B2B brand can be on TikTok also, for that matter of fact.
Yeah.
Have you thought of that? You wouldn't think of it, but it can be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Maulik, Apoorv, how much of artificial intelligence softwares you guys use?
Nice question.
Yeah. And is it really a boon, or when do you actually use them?
So see, once upon a time when let's put it in this way. When Canva came in, a lot of, I'm going to speak this from the client side. A lot of clients said, okay, now it's okay, we can ourselves do Canva or somebody else can do it, you know. It's something like that. Today, when an AI comes in, probably a lot of people, even in the agency sides or consulting sides, would think that maybe we can sort of use it. And many would also try to say that, nahi, hum nahi karte, because innovation is all about, you know, doing it with your own hand and head in a way. But what we feel is that technology is to empower, and we feel that human thinking is something that drives it. So we do use it for purposes. So, for example, okay, let's be this thing to you. Some of the AVs that you saw did have AI in them. I'm not sure how many of you identified them, and if you did, well, it's there. It's only going to get improving in time to time. One thing that it helps is that copyright issues and things like that can immediately be eliminated, because somewhere down the line, because there are commercial licenses attached to them. And more than that, today is the world of, okay, I don't want to say that because it is a world of quick communication, so you just keep generating content. But if you are planned and quick, this helps you to remain quick, if I make sense on that one. So that's where we utilize it.
Okay. Another question from Shreya. She says that when you feel your content is boring since you have limited offerings in B2B marketing, how do you stay relevant?
Absolutely. I mean, in fact, this is exactly the reason why, again, third time I'm repeating that most people say Happy Diwali and Happy New Year and whatever.
So one quick answer to this is use metaphors. For example, if I have to tell you, a company is manufacturing nails, मतलब खिले nails. एक ही commodity है offering में, क्या कर सकते हो उसके लिए? How would you generate good content? Maybe you show a metaphor of a security guard of England. You know, you compare it a nail besides
so basically the King's Guard.
The King's Guard,
the security of the
and you say that guard is so stubborn, it holds on to its position. He never moves. He has that strength, and you compare it with a nail. Immediately, your content is unboring. But
to reach to that, and Shreya, the fact is, again, many times it is ad hoc also, but you need to realize in your communication strategy, where does it fit in? But you need to keep your eyes open for it. In fact, again, if you all go on the Unboring B2B page, one of the pinned posts has something called as Here's to the Crazy, where there are lots of examples given, including this particular thing that Apoorv mentioned about. You might want to have a look at that booklet out there. And that it was basically a collection of thoughts as to how B2B brands can be unboring in different aspects. In fact, a B2B even doing an outdoor or probably a billboard is something which is like क्यों करे B2B? But we are also seeing that possibly some B2B companies are using that also for their benefit. So have a look at that, and maybe you'll get some more thoughts and ideas, and your questions will be probably answered much more, in depth. So yeah.
Nice. Like you mentioned, content is what nails everything, and content is very, very important these days. Okay, another question by Avinash says, what do you think about the latest iPad ad featuring a giant hydraulic press crushing tools of creativity? Agreed, they want to show their iPad can be used for all creative stuff, but why attack all creative ways and look like a villain? What's their message to people?
Right. So maybe I should be diplomatic and say maybe this is a B2C ad, so we are not going to answer it and move on. But no, I think this is a very interesting question. See, again, I think in fact, from what I know also that Apple has also apologized for that particular ad, and Samsung has also come with a response to it, saying that we don't crush creativity. See, somewhere down the line, a lot of things appear very, very sort of strategic, and they appear to be amazing. But again, I wouldn't want to speak for Apple, but in general, I want to talk about it that you should be testing your communication among certain stakeholder groups. The fact is, out of 10 out of 10 out of 10 is not going to be possible. Even a brand like Apple is going to make a mistake of that sort. Again, considering that it's a mistake, I'm not at this point of time saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. I think they tried to show that we are not crushing things, but we are putting things inside. Maybe that methodology of showing, crushing, and putting in was what hurt people. Had they sort of just done this thing that all these things are flying in the air and getting inside that iPad, it might have worked. Maybe the treatment was what hurt people. So somewhere down the line, I think that is what we need to understand as communication people. You remember the same thing like the Johnson and Johnson ad. I'm going to the logo change. Most people fought on the logo change, not on what was the reason behind it. Perhaps Apple had wanted to do a messaging, but the treatment went wrong. Sometimes treatments do go wrong. So I think if I leave it at that, the suggestion would be that yes, sometimes people do react, and sometimes you may have to say we are sorry. But again, taking a stand is important. Had Apple said that no, we are believing in this, yes, you are putting everything in the iPad, but perhaps they understood that their treatment was wrong, the crushing element was wrong. Maybe that's why they said sorry. So with that, if the intent is there, then maybe all's well that ends well. That would be the response.
Okay. Himmat Patel has been, asking this question that how do you all do research, and is there any subscription or a website which you all use, or what's the process of your research?
Going to the horse is the best answer. So, of course, when you say research, there are various stakeholder groups which are involved, obviously, and they start with your client teams to begin with. So having one-on-ones or primary research is the most important thing to do. There is also something for reference, because we have been, and this is for applicable to us in a way, we have been in the industry for so long now that we have got a lot of residual knowledge also, which is there. So which helps, which is both qualitative and quantitative. Of course, when it comes to sort of having data, there are a lot of subscriptions which are available. There are also many. There are reports also which are there. So we do subscribe to some of them, but as I said, many of them may not be relevant to our market in the biggest of the ways. We do them for referential purposes. It is always better to go in for primary research, even if it is lesser number of people at one level, or if it is not fully quantitative but qualitative, or rather, even if you can say observational, it might have more insights or sort of hooks which have been unimagined in a particular report, which can come out. So while research is important, we would say that we do not subscribe to the idea of just reading numbers and just trying to showcase lots of graphs and all. It is more about sort of touching ground. For example, if you have to do work for a industrial client, maybe we want to spend time in the industry for some time, with the workers and things like that. We
do go to factories to understand the processes.
Yeah.
We understand the materials, everything. Also, research is not just about data and numbers, it's also about people, their mindsets, their behaviors, their expectations. And that is you can only capture that when you interact with them one-on-one. So that is where the whole story starts.
And then what if I tell you, Neha, just as a passing joke, today in the evening we are going to go as dealers of sari buyers to a market. Just to tell you, this is just for a laugh sake.
It's a project that we are working on in the B2B space, and we would be playing a role of dummy customers to understand how the team reacts.
Great. Okay, there are many of them who want to get in touch with y'all. If one of y'all can just put your email IDs in the chat box, it'll be nice. We'll take another question from Nikita Shetty. Uh, Content marketing is a mainstay in B2B marketing, but how can B2B brands ensure their content strategy stays unboring in the face of information overload? What kind of crazy and creative content formats they can experiment with?
Of course. So again, what happens is specifically in B2B, more of the content is functional because it's more about the business, the features, the price. How are we good in terms of features? And there's a content overload as correctly pointed. And what happens is that people keep on repeating the same thing. Acha, and especially if I have to talk about SaaS, of course, everyone is offering almost the same thing. One will come up with a feature and say, oh, I've added this feature. Kal dusra bhi leke aayega. So there will be no differentiator. And when it comes to content, of course, they have to be unboring. They have to keep inventing. They have to keep coming up with a different approach, a fresh approach, wherein they don't just talk about functionality. They also include emotions. So emotions is the answer of course, then giving it more crazy treatments, was using AI, using metaphors. All these are a part of treatments, but adding emotions and doing less of functional content can be a key to differentiation.
And don't think emotion as the word literally emotion. The emotion could not be just about which is tear jerking. It could be probably even surprise,
laughters,
various other things which could be there.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions? Apoorv, Maulik, if you all can please type out your email IDs here so the participants can get in touch with you all.
We just did that.
We did it in the chat box.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I think we really enjoyed the question.
Any more questions? There are a lot here. Nikita, it's okay. Would you like to answer one more, Maulik?
Okay.
Yeah, one last one from Nikita. Since let me just go back. Since everyone uses influencers to sell stuff to consumers, B2B, can businesses that sell to other businesses use them too? With all these experiments on LinkedIn these days, how can B2B brands use them in the surprising way to get noticed?
Right. I think somewhere down the line, if I understand your question correctly, Nikita, it is focused a lot when you say influencers in the online space. I'm not going to say that it's not possible, or maybe it will be something which has to be done in a dramatic fashion. But we have to understand again the context. So, for example, maybe the nurse which you saw. Again, I'm going to the nurse so that because you'll have seen it. Now, she is an influencer, right? At the end of the day. Now, if we use the character of a nurse or the role of a nurse, and if you try to then do communication, one directly to them, see, understand the word, to them, and one using the nurse as a medium to sort of communicate online, the way which you're talking about. That's another way of looking at it. So if we are able to identify influencer roles and profiles, then we will be able to sort of channelize where and how we want to use it. And again, here on both offline and online works. Again, since I'm taking that, the typical definition of an influencer in the online space is somebody who is an influencer, right? Somebody who's got a following. That may not be the case in the B2B space of an influencer. It's not somebody who's got numbers. I mean, that's the way how we'd like to see it. It would be somebody probably who has maybe, maybe no followers, it's like a character, or maybe there are people who are, maybe there are people who, it's a community which is driving it. So you have to understand how an influencer is also imagined or defined in the context of communication for a particular B2B brand. If that makes sense. It's a little complex what I spoke, I believe.
Just to give an example of what Maulik said, let's say if you are doing an interior for your house, and there is you hire a painter, and the painter says, sir, Asian paints का पेंट लीजिए. आप बोलेंगे नहीं यार मेरे को बर्जर का लेना है. सर एशियन का लीजिए, वो अच्छा है, मैं गारंटी देता हूँ. बर्जर का मैं गारंटी नहीं देता हूँ. So because you are relying on that person, there are high chances you will go for Asian paints. That is where the influencer thing can happen. That painter does not have followers on Instagram. but he influences your buying decision. That is what Maulik was trying to say. I tried to simplify it with an example.
but
I hope it's
but having said that, I remember I said कि TikTok के ऊपर भी हो सकते हैं B2B brands. So there are painters who are there on TikTok and who are communicating. And of course, now in that role, you might say that maybe these are people who are not doing anything for the brand per se, but maybe that's an opportunity for the brand to capitalize on them. Nikita, if that was the kind of context in which you put up influencers, then that's your answer, you know, in a way that it can be done. Hope it helps.
Okay, so Maulik, Apoorva, this was the last question we took. We would like you to come on screen for all of us here.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, hello.
Yeah.
Yes. We're going to end this session. And thank you, Maulik. Thank you, Apoorva, for an amazing, insightful session with lovely examples. And I'm sure there are a lot of questions pouring in, and you will be bombarded with your mailboxes with a lot of questions. So answer them. And students, thank you for all your participation. Extremely interactive and an intriguing session indeed. Thank you so much. Miami Ad School is very, very grateful to have you. And we will surely come up with many more sessions like this, and hope to see you all for many more masterclasses like this. Thank you so much. Have a brilliant day ahead.
Thank you so much,
Thank
everybody.
you so much. I mean, really thank you for the participants for so much energy. We really enjoyed it. The curiosity levels are very high. We love that. We love addressing the curiosity. Thank you for so many questions. Even that helped us in, the thought-provoking. Maybe we'll go back to our notes and maybe use some examples out of this in our presentations. But really, thank you. Thank you, Neha. Thank you, Miami, for the opportunity. And thank you, everyone, for being hooked on to 1.5 hours that we spent here on, and bearing us for the whole session.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. See you.
Bye.